Hello, and welcome again to Unexpected Advice. Today, I am really excited because I'm joined by someone I've known for a long time, and I'm very excited to consider a close friend, is Jerry Bennett. He is an award-winning illustrator and author and a fellow alum from the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma. Jerry has built an incredible career bringing stories to life through illustration, from comics and graphic novels and picture books to teaching and mentoring creatives around the world, and his work spans licensed projects for Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Disney, DreamWorks, you name it. He's even created comics that have won a variety of awards. In fact, it was for the Pioneer Library System that earned a local and national recognition from the American Library Association. He also has the most unique laugh you have ever heard in your life. Seriously. So one time I was in a movie theater in Oklahoma with some friends watching the show. A funny part comes up and we hear the laugh. I hear Jerry's laugh. I know he's in the theater. Then someone else across the theater goes, Jerry Bennett? I'm like, I lose it at this point. I lose it at this point. Okay. So those who know the show, this is not what we're going to talk about. Your laugh or just the illustrations that you've done. We're actually going to talk about business, and you're going to give us some really amazing business advice. So, Jerry, welcome to Unexpected Advice. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. I love hanging out with you.
We always have good times. It's always good times. So,
Always.
I want to dive into this because it was really fascinating when you asked you to be on the show and you were like, yeah. And I said, what advice would people not expect to get from you? And you're like, the business of being creative. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So maybe start with how you got here because you didn't do this forever. You studied this in college, but talk to us a little bit about that journey so we understand how you got into the business of art.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, as you know, USAO graduated 93. And I kind of spent a year after USAO living in Chickasha, just working, no specific jobs, whatever. And I was in the process of actually moving to San Diego because that's where
Mhm.
the thriving comic book industry was in the 90s. Image Comics is like one of the premier comic book companies that creates some of the best independent stories and creator owned stories at that. And so I wanted to be in on that action. And so I had set up. Um, some friends of mine had parents that lived in San Diego, and they had a room set up for me, and I was going to move. And the week of, they had to give that room back to one of their other daughters, and so
Wow.
I kind of just like said, "Oh well," and I moved back to Oklahoma City and decided to just work here. And I thought maybe I could, and this is before the internet, so I thought I could maybe do some art here, establish a career here, and even in comics, which I thought was at the time a monumental task
Right.
because any kind of art in Oklahoma was a difficult sell. And so, um, so I moved back to Oklahoma City and took a job working for a door and plywood shop. And I ended up working that job for like 16 years total. And then I got to a point I was closing in on I was closing in on 40 years old of age. And I decided that was the time I really needed to step away from that and move into art full time. Like
Yeah.
I needed to have confidence in myself, and
Yeah.
that's something I don't think I really cultivated throughout throughout those decades. I don't think I fully cultivated a confidence in myself, which I think is
Mm.
huge. As we talk about business, I've learned that helps you really put yourself out there, and it really helps you find your audience. And so I just made the leap of faith, right, like months before I turned 40, to just jump into it. And during that time I was working at the door and plywood shop, I did do a lot of like comic cons. In that time I started developing relationships with a lot of comic creators in Oklahoma. We even started developing a strong like comic book creator community. We had a
Mhm.
Facebook page that was really going strong. Has a huge membership there. I was doing a lot of client work for a lot of different people. I started getting real involved with this organization called the SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Okay.
And my first year in, I was actually brought in. They invited me to be the illustrator coordinator for our region, and so I took that on, and it allowed me to like develop a lot of relationships with
Mhm.
editors and agents and art directors
Okay.
in children's publishing. And so, yeah, that was a really cool opportunity. I have a lot of great friendships because of that. In that, and I even like even to this day, like I did the illustrator coordinator position for 12 years, and as I was deciding to step down, I was invited to apply to be the U.S. illustrator coordinator, which is the illustrator coordinator that approves and supports all the illustrator coordinators in the
Yeah.
U.S.
Wow.
And so I applied and I got that position, and I've been doing that for almost 3 years now. And
That's
so,
fantastic. So that's something that you're still doing, and I think you touch on something that we talked about in an earlier podcast with Michelle Scobie about building a network, building community, building that group around you.
absolutely, yes, and I can't stress highly enough how important it is to build community, because, and not just community of like-minded creators, but like-minded fans of the
Mm.
stuff that you work in, and that's why Comic Cons have been so important to me.
Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more to that business side of things. So my
Yeah.
first question is, what is a business lesson you learned the hard way that really had nothing to do with art or talent, but you're like, oh God, I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn it now.
Oh, that's a great question. I would say uh, having a firm agreement in place, like
Oh,
knowing
interesting.
knowing exactly what you want to offer for the amount that's being offered to you. Because, like, as an illustrator, you are giving them a product that they will want, and in order for them to want that, they want to see some sketches. They want to see lots of different ideas. They want to have feedback opportunities for revision on some of these sketches as they progress in layers. And even in the final, it's so funny. Like, I will offer all kinds of feedback throughout sketches to process to finished product. And even in the finished product, they'll decide that they want some changes in there, or they'll want to see something completely different. And so it's such a weird subjective industry, the illustration
Yeah.
industry, and you have to, like, realize that um, if you aren't confident in your particular style, you're going to try to make people happy by creating something that is not
Mm.
you. And
Right.
hopefully they are coming to you because they want you, they want your style. Um, and a lot of
Mm.
illustrators don't realize that right off the bat. And a lot of people who hire illustrators, they don't realize what they even want sometimes.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
so,
it's like portfolio. This is so kind of goes to the essential core of a brand. Like as an
yes,
illustrator, your brand is your styling, however you
yes,
might style. And it's a little different for like traditional commercial artists or someone who just does, design work that modifies to the brand the organization's established. You're bringing this style to that organization. They're having to adopt that or, that this
absolutely,
styling of your art. And
absolutely.
I'm curious, how do you price that? Like when you think about pricing, what are the things that you have to take, especially since the value isn't obvious, it's not tangible. Like I want 57 different revisions. How do you price that? How do you go about thinking about pricing that?
Well, I first had to, like, honestly, I had to price myself cheaply because
Mm,
I was an unknown commodity. And, I go by the whole system of demand versus supply.
yeah.
I had plenty of supply, but no demand right off the bat. And so I would start out cheaply. I should have started out with, like, a set agreement of telling them
Mm,
what I would offer right off the bat, as far as, like, a product plus how many revisions that I would want to offer
hmm.
them. And I didn't do that right off the bat. And so there's lots of clients that I'd done plenty of revisions for, and so it was a tough slog for a little bit. But then I
Yeah.
realized how much I should offer them, and I would charge for any subsequent revisions that they would
Right.
want. And so that started working out. That kind of template was starting to build for me. And as that was building, my audience was building. I started building the audience slowly through social media, through word of mouth. Oddly, word of mouth, I think, did better for me for a while
Hmm.
than social media did. But social media did do me a kindness, as far as, like, I would take on the idea. Like there was a time period where I was hardcore focused in doing a lot of pop culture mashups. The supposedly is like free of like license attacks or whatever, as far as like not breaking laws of
Yeah.
license. And so I would do a bunch of these and they would get picked up by websites. They would get picked up. I would offer them on these. At the time, there was this whole template, several websites that follow this template of offering a T-shirt design for a small period of time. Like say, like the one that gave me the biggest success was T Theory. They
Okay.
had the system of for 24 hours they would offer a new tee design from an artist, and they would sell as many as they could in that 24 hours and then move on to a new design. And so I had done this one design of Admiral Akbar from Star Wars wearing a Ghostbuster
Yes,
uniform.
I think we might have bought this T-shirt. I mean, I know I've got the art somewhere in this house. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So yeah, and so like for those who can put two and two together, so Admiral Akbar was holding a ghost trap, and which fit perfectly with his catchphrase, "It's a trap." And end up selling in 24 hours. I sold 3,000 tees.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy, and you get the artist gets $1 per tee.
Nice.
So that was a nice one-day paycheck, and
Nice. Yeah.
and it got me a huge audience online. Got a ton of followers that day, that
Okay.
week, and it helped continually keep me going on a strong audience building path.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to put up more of those designs. Lots of different. I did a steampunk Ghostbuster design. I did some Doctor Who
Okay.
design. Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of different mashups, which led to some of my licensed work. And so I had
Okay.
entered some contests, and I know a lot of artists don't support that idea of entering these contests because, and to be fair, there is a lot of like taking advantage of the artist in that
Yeah.
realm.
That's actually a good point. Like, thinking for any entrepreneur, people starting businesses, it's hard to know what to invest in. So, how did you make those decisions versus of pay to play? Because there's like, if you don't have that audience, if you don't have that network, how did you make those decisions from a business perspective to really weigh that on what do I invest in versus what do I pass on? What were some of your
Well,
criteria?
honestly, at the time, it was just what I wanted to draw. I
Mm,
I wanted to do Marvel licensed work and Star Wars licensed work, and so I would just submit. I would draw these entries with no promise of payment or winning a contest of any kind. I would enter these contests, and the only reason I felt so confident in doing these was because one, I enjoyed it. Two, I had the door plywood job at the time,
okay.
and so like the big sacrifice was probably in just all the evenings that I had to spend, in art. Like I
Okay.
had to like sacrifice a lot of time. My wife and I, in the evenings, we would watch some TV, and all that time I would draw and work on things. And
Yeah,
so
so it's kind of like it's balance too, then, like, with that was a long-term creative goal that you had with a short term. So how did you manage the short-term business need there? So when you have to, like, because you made the leap and now you have to actually start making money at this. So how did you balance that? Like, I wanna draw, I wanna do this, but the short term, I have to do these other things. How did that work for you?
That was tough. It was freaky because like there were a lot of unknowns at the time. So when I jumped into the full time
Yeah.
business, thankfully I did have clients already lined up, and they weren't like big money making clients, but at least I had work, and so and I had a little cushion. I built up a little financial cushion, and I let that sustain us for a while. And in that meantime, I just worked hard. I would clock in and do the work. And in fact, I get a lot of
Yeah.
compliments for how prolific I have
You
been.
are.
Like, so I try, and that's the thing. You have to constantly put new work out. You have to like keep working, keep practicing, keep drawing, and keep accepting work.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of opinions on how, what kind of work you should accept and how much money you should take. But for me, it was more about what I enjoyed doing. And this is where the unexpected advice comes in, because I have learned to be content with what I have. Like like we've always had plenty. And I realized I've had like over. I almost feel like it was a sickness, and how much I like to collect toys and comics and stuff. I mean, you can even see behind me, like I've got just tons of stuff behind me.
Yeah.
I've really learned to like not really want that stuff from much anymore. I still enjoy it all,
Sure.
but I just don't spend my money there now. I've learned to really be content and spend accordingly to what I have, which, to be honest, it's not much. I don't make a huge killing in my profession, but I'm happy and I'm
Yeah.
content and I'm at peace. And that was the big change from when I let go of the door and plywood shop, because I was stressed out and I was depressed.
Mm.
And I got to a point where I was just really not enjoying my life. And so when I made that jump of with that leap of faith into the unknown, I never realized how fulfilling it would feel. And that was a
Mhm.
huge bonus for me. And so like one big advice for me, probably the seminal advice for me, is that learn to be content with what you have, especially if you want that position, if you want regular client work, because it's very much a feast or famine. But if you are happy with what you have, I think the art career is a much more sustainable one for
Mm.
you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think when in business, if you find those things that are draining and taking from you, yes, you might have a lot at a certain point in time, but at some point in time, you have nothing more to give. And
Absolutely.
then what do you have left? Yeah, so let's talk about advice that you would give to um, create. You mentioned this too, is that there's a business to creation, and you just mentioned it just a second ago where you said like you schedule that time. So, and I've heard this from other like authors. How do you schedule? How do you create structure when there is no like theoretically like, oh, I can do whatever I want when I want. How do you go about creating that structure in your life?
Well, I mean, I have to treat it like a job. I have to like,
Yeah.
you know, build my routine as I would a normal job that I would clock in and clock out of. I think you have to build yourself a template, and the template can
Mhm.
be all forms. Depending. Some people like thrive in the evenings and late at night, and
Right.
so maybe. And I know tons of people who work late into the night. And that's their schedule, and so
Yeah.
as long as you understand what kind of schedule works for you, that's what you need to do. But you have to build that template and you have to be consistent at it.
Yes, that consistency is huge. And it's funny to me, Jerry, because I think when you think of an artist, we always think of like their arts, their creatives, they're all out there, but you really are independent business owners, right? And so,
Absolutely.
if you're thinking about as a business owner, what advice would you give to other business owners? So, people folks like me that I've started my own company. Not in particularly in the creative, but what are some of the lessons you're like, oh, this applies to everybody, or you heard this advice from someone else, and you're like, oh yeah, as a business owner, this is what you got to do.
Well, I mean, you have to understand the tax system. You have to understand the money that you have. You have to understand sales tax. You have to understand everything
Oh
that you can be tax exempt. For the longest time, I never did all the tax exempt stuff, and
yeah.
like I realized there was even buying comic books for me was a tax exempt thing, and so
Oh.
anytime I go to the comic book shop to buy comics, it's counted as research. Anytime
Yeah.
yeah, any art supplies, any trips that I make to any other towns or states to do workshops, to do comic conventions, any of that, the gas is an expense, the meals are an expense. I just start learning how to organize myself. That which was the worst. I'm not organized at all. And I'm glad you don't see the rest of my office because that shows you how much I'm not organized.
Same here. I have this really pretty it's right it's just perfect. It's all put together.
The facade.
The facade. What? I'm put together.
Exactly.
Am I wearing pajama pants? You'll never know.
I know, right? Am I even wearing pants? You'll never know. Amazing. So, like, understanding, like I think most artists, I do all. I do all of my stuff, all of my taxes. I do them quarterly, and thankfully, my wife knows how to do a lot of that stuff too. So I
Yeah,
depend
because
on her
she's
for
her
a
own
lot of
business.
that.
She runs her own business as well.
Exactly, exactly. So she's got things. She knows the business way better than I do, to be honest. And so I
Yeah.
should know a lot more about that side of it. And sadly, I really don't.
That's okay. Well, I mean, I dig into resources, right? And this is where I think community makes sense, especially as a business owner. So, like my mom was a professor of accounting. So, who do you
Right.
think I'm calling? When I'm like, okay, so I think I did my taxes right, but or I know how do I look at these expenses? She already started doing research for me, like look at these different softwares and stuff. So you have to reach into that network. So, talk to me a little bit more about any advice that you would have for people like creative specifically? So if there's anybody that is thinking of starting their business or they're starting to run their own business, what advice would you have to because you mentioned being sure that you put your, financials, administrative, right? What are some other pieces of advice that you have found and or what is the best piece of advice you've gotten?
Oh, that's it. You know what? I honestly like I felt most of the advice that I have like sought out was more about creating the work. Um
Mm,
I kind of just felt my way through as far as like building the business side of it. I let it kind of organically happen. But I did have to understand, like I said, organization. I did have to understand, and a huge aspect of organization came into the client work that I took on because, like,
okay.
I would accept a lot of work and not realize right off the bat that all the deadlines would come in at very similar times. And
Yes.
so I was scrambling, for trying to create lots of work for a few deadlines that happened at the same time. And so um, I try to manage my timeline better now. My calendar, I make sure to calendar everything so I can
Oh
figure
yeah.
out when I have time to do this and when I can take on more clients and continue moving forward.
Yes. Have and how do you decide? So I know that we talked a little bit in the past, but how do you decide what to take on and what not? I think as a business owner, we sometimes, especially when you're starting off, and you mentioned this, I have to take all the things. I have to have all the things because I got to make some money. I got to build. How do you make those decisions now? How do you think about it now when you decide to take someone on or just like this isn't going to work?
Well, having enough experience to know what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy
Okay.
helps decide what you want to take on. And it also helps you decide how much to charge for those things. Because,
Mm,
like, if I want to take on uh, a particular project and I know it's going to be something I won't enjoy as much as another project, I will charge more for that, to be honest. And if they want to pay that price, then it'll be worth it for both of us then, I feel
right.
like.
Right.
But
Yes.
but if it's something that I've been wanting to do, then I probably won't charge as much. I will charge enough, but I will charge probably significantly less than I would with another project. Because like it'd be something that I would have fun with and enjoy. Like any
Interesting.
comic book project, if you're into comics in the comics process, you would understand the pricing. Like in Marvel
Mhm.
Comics, which is the template for a lot of people's pricing. Um, Pencilers, get, I think, 250 a page, and that
Okay.
might be different now with the way the industry has been, like, really. I'm not even gonna go there. Um, but, locally, I'll take on work for a much lesser price to do, uh, not only pencils, but pencils through coloring, pencils, inks, coloring. I'll even do
Mm,
the lettering. And for one, I do enjoy having a total control over a page because I get to decide the composition. And this goes into the creative aspects of creating a
right.
comic, deciding how you compose the page, how you want to color it, how you want to letter it, and all that. But uh, I will take less money for comic book work just because I enjoy it and
Mhm.
it just helps me continue to build experience on it, and I have an agent, I have some graphic novels on submission, and if they get bought, I know that it still won't be a huge amount of money because for one, they just can't offer the amount of money that it would take a comic book creator to draw an entire 200-page graphic
Mhm.
novel. Because if you
Mhm.
consider the amount of work, it's it's unrealistic for a
Yeah.
publisher to pay that, unfortunately. But that's why comic book creators do it because we love it that much,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Well, and I think it is that balance of what you love and then what you can get paid for, which is something that is interesting to me is that you've expanded. So beyond just the creating the art, you also do education, you do workshops, you do other things. How did you find the things that you could say that tagged on that were ancillary? So that maybe isn't your core product, but these are ancillary things that you can make money at, you still enjoy doing. How did you identify those?
It was honestly by accident. People reached out to me wanting advice. They wanted, I would get invited by libraries and schools to come visit and talk about comics, talk about my career, talk about the process of creating comic books. And so I started doing that for free, honestly, just because it was fun. I enjoyed talking about it.
Well, and support
The
libraries. Thank you. We need to
Oh
support our
yeah,
libraries.
absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
all about. I try to do any event I can for libraries, but I got to a point where like it was a balancing act to be able to create work at home while leaving the house to go do these workshops and
Hmm.
library school visits and what have you. So I did have to start charging, but I tried to charge minimally for the most part. And if I have to go across state, as long as I can figure out like all of the expenses, they're happy to include those expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to a point where I was even like invited to do art residencies, like
Yes.
our own USAO. I got to do an art residency there, which involved me being an adjunct teacher there.
Oh, very cool.
They even let me design my own curriculum for creating comics, and so that was an amazing semester for me.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really fun. That's really fun. So, any advice that you would give for folks that are thinking about going into this, like with the business side of art? What advice would you have for folks getting in there?
Oh, let me think. Well, and figure out what you enjoy doing. Figure out what you wouldn't mind doing if the price is right.
Yes, I
Figure
like
out
that. I like it's like your own price list, your own art price list of
that's exactly right. That is exactly right.
I
Yeah,
love
you
this
really
advice.
yeah, you have to understand what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy and what you're willing to do despite enjoyment and understand your schedule, understand how many hours you can devote in a day, in a week. Make sure that you do give yourself time to rest. You have to sleep, you have to exercise.
Yes.
I force myself to get out of this chair and go walking when the weather's good, or get on the elliptical because if we don't do that, our brains are going to suffer for it because we
Yes.
have to exercise to keep our brains intact. We have to
Yeah.
read to keep our brains
Mm,
going, and so especially
yeah.
as a graphic novelist, as a graphic novel reader, comic book reader, you want to read not only to energize your brain, but you also
Hmm.
want to, in a way, you want to continue studying the craft.
Mm, right.
For me, reading comic books is an entertainment, but it's also a research.
I
So
love that. I love that.
Ye yeah,
All
and
right.
so, yeah, and understand, what money you can spend, be very understanding of your finances, be very understanding of what you have and don't have, and don't go into debt,
Mhm.
like, I
Yeah.
feel like if you can stay debt-free, relatively debt-free, I mean, like, I obviously have a house payment, but
Right.
that's the only debt I have, and so that allows me to be more comfortable and enjoy my career a lot more.
Right, and not and to take on and by the way, when you said when we talked about price list, I literally saw in my head, like, illustrations and what your pricing model was for that. Stuff that I love doing, stuff that I tolerate doing, stuff that I really don't wanna do, $1,000,000. But this is I have to say on the on the pricing, this is something that I've talked to a lot of people just in business. They'll say like, "Oh, well, we can't do that." I'm like, "It's not always a matter of can or can't, it's a matter of how much." If someone came to you and said, "I'll pay you $1,000,000 to do this, will you do it?" Well, yeah, of course. Well, then it's not it's not a can or can't, it's how much is it worth to you to do this? And I think especially
Absolutely.
I hear that and what you're saying resonating in your artwork, it's how much how much is it gonna cost? Because it's gonna take more time, and that's the other thing, it's gonna take more time, energy, so we have to figure out those pricing models for our different businesses. And there's a lot of books out there that talk about consulting and creating value based, right? Value based pricing. And so I think there is that side on the client side. The client, what is it worth to them? And then
Yeah.
on your side, what is it worth to you to get paid to do that?
Absolutely. I used to ask the client, what is in their budget,
Yeah.
and I they hee hawed around that usually, and so because they didn't want to like give themselves away basically, because
Yeah.
you're playing this cat and mouse game of deciding how much they're willing to pay versus how much you're willing to be paid, and so I would just right up front decide how much it's worth to me,
Yes.
and that way there's no more headaches of trying to play this game. And if they're not willing to pay, then that's their problem.
Yeah, that's that. Well, and it's sometimes it's that range. Like, if there's clients that say, "Well, if it's 10,000 or if it's 15,000, like, what have you budgeted?" Because if it's a $10,000 budget, that's one thing I can deliver. It's a $15,000 budget. It's another thing that I can deliver. And giving them, you still give them the choice, but you also give them the range, and that's
Yeah.
something that I've tried as well to say, like, are we talking a $5,000 budget or a $50,000 budget?
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, the amount of work and the ideas are completely different.
Yes. Yes, and the time that you have to do it and the space that you have to do it. I always lean
Oh,
in also to the triangle of the time. Do you want it fast? Do you want it good?
yes.
Do
I
you want
was
it
just
cheap?
gonna get absolutely. I was just gonna say that because like a lot of people like, and I should have said this right off the bat. Is like know what their deadlines are. Know
Yes.
when they want what they
Yes.
want. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
yeah. That triangle is so vital for the creator because if they are not paying according to the deadline as well, then yeah,
Yes.
you're putting yourself
Yes.
in a corner.
You are. I think we've identified a new graphic novel for Jerry Bennett to illustrate is on business acumen.
I actually love the idea of that. I don't think there's actually that's fantastic. Oh my gosh, Esther,
All
we
right.
should
Is this
collaborate.
gonna be in the podcast or not? I
I
don't know.
know, I
Nobody steal our idea.
know, I
It's
know,
okay. I don't
right?
have that many listeners. Nobody's gonna pay attention
It's
anyway.
trademark. It's trademark. This is official trademark right here. Boom.
I love it. I love it. Actually, that would be super fun to collaborate with you on a project like
That
Jerry.
would
I'm in.
that would be amazing. Because, like, honestly, um, I I love that, and this is a sidebar on comics, the power of comics and graphic novels
Yes.
is that you can use that in so many different ways. The storytelling value in
Yes.
comics allows you to teach, allows you to educate, allows you to, show perspectives that
Yes.
just can't be seen any other way. I've done comics for like OU's business department. I've done, like you said, the
Yeah.
library comic I did with and recently I've done some nonprofit comic book work for like it was like a pediatric healthcare
Yeah.
company that had me do a comic book about what their system is, and so
Yeah.
it,
It tells a story because we're based in stories and visualization. Most people, it's that illustration, it's a picture. A picture's worth a thousand words. So show me that picture of
absolutely.
how it's supposed to be, and I capture that understanding faster because I'm telling the story faster.
Absolutely. That power is how we learn. I mean, from a very young age, that visual text relationship allows us to learn so much faster. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break and then come right back. And you're going to give us some expected advice. All right. So expected advice. You mentioned this um, already that people would ask, like, who would you like to work for, Marvel or DC? Would you like to work for one of the big boys? And you had an interesting answer. What was your answer?
So when people ask me that question, like you do work for DC or Marvel, I go, no, 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 no. I have come to realize that Marvel and DC does not value like it's surprising how little they value the artist,
Yeah.
and they've shown that in how they've like dropped pay rates and what have you. But even more so, like I enjoy the power of storytelling, and I enjoy new
Mhm.
stories, and so getting to see. I've gotten to see beautiful. I've gotten to read beautiful memoirs in graphic novel form. Like, have you heard of March?
No. Okay.
Oh, it's about the civil rights era, and it was written
Wow.
by the late Congressman John Lewis. He led this student organization, which ended up being a very integral student organization that worked in the civil rights era, and he ended up working a lot alongside Martin Luther King. And it's a beautiful story, 3 volumes, and every volume is amazing. It's emotionally told, and so that's the
Yeah.
beauty of comics. Again, is I love how they powerfully tell these stories, not only sharing like events, sharing truth and facts, but sharing them in an emotional, powerful way. And so I have come to really want to tell my own stories. So I've been writing my own graphic novels, and I've even even toyed with the idea of a memoir myself, because I feel like I've got something
Yeah.
I can tell in that space. But I just enjoy original stories, and I've
Yeah.
got some stories that I've been wanting to tell, and so that's where I'm focusing.
That's awesome.
That's the answer I would give to people.
I love because this is kind of the whole point of me starting this whole podcast was I think everybody's got stories to tell and we've all got really interesting pieces of advice. So last question. Star Wars, Star Trek.
uh yes. No,
I know, right? Like we've done Voyager, we've done the Star Wars. Like we do enjoy both of them. So I
I do enjoy both of them. I think if I had to choose, probably Star Wars, because that was what was so ingrained in me from the
yeah,
get go. It started my drawing career. It started my idea. It started my whole storytelling uh,
yeah.
fascination. All my goal setting was all surrounded Star Wars, and so
Okay.
probably Star Wars. I may not enjoy everything that's happening now in the Star Wars world, but I
It
still
was a
I
good story.
still it
Yeah.
was a good story.
And the premise.
In fact, I just read. Oh my gosh! So this story is amazing. It's actually a
Star Wars.
graphic novel about George Lucas and his struggle to make Star Wars, and
That's really fascinating.
it is. It's the most fascinating story, and it's inspiring because like every creator
Mm,
that has created something that has like really resonated with people, it took so much for them to get that work out there, because
yeah.
people fight it. People don't have the same vision you do. And you just have to like believe in yourself and press forward to make that thing happen.
Yes. Agreed. All right. Well, thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate you coming on the show, chatting with me for so long. I'm excited
Thank
and we'll
you.
start working on that book. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Thank you.